So Neville, from accounting to wine, what brought you from numbers to the bottle as such? What brought you into the world of wine?
Well, the accounting to wine sort of came through the restaurant, really. So when my wife and I decided to open a restaurant, and she's a very good amateur cook, she was, and now then became a very good professional cook. Somebody once described it as a different sort of cooking, and then when I had the restaurant, I discovered that I could actually import my own house wine at a very reasonable cost from France, from Burgundy, actually. I don't get anything reasonable from Burgundy these days, but then it was, and so I did that, and then I was approached by somebody from a magazine, a then called magazine called Restaurant Business, which doesn't exist anymore. That's not my fault. And I was their sort of wine writer, wine correspondent, Restaurant Business. And I did start off, telling restaurateurs how they can import their own house wine, relatively easily and cheaply, which is what I did. I had this stuff from a Burgundian negociant. Whether the wines were actually from Burgundy or not, I don't know. I had the name of the merchant or the negociant, and it was perfectly okay. And then other restaurateurs asked me, can I help them with their wine list? Which I did. I did that, and then whilst I was still running a restaurant, and in 1996 we got an offer we couldn't refuse for our restaurant, and the economy wasn't that great either. And this was the time when mom and pop restaurants like ours, which Faye Masher described it as a mom and pop restaurant, were going a bit out of fashion, and the sort of chain started with decent food and wine. And so we sold up. I had already started a company called the Wine Treasury, which I started in 1988 with my daughter, who left me after a few months, said she wasn't going to get involved selling wine to rich Tories. And she went off to Bristol to go and work for some rather different kind of, it's a different kind of life to what I had. And so,
sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so I started the wine company, and I had obviously got contacts from wines I had imported, not imported myself, but I bought from California, France. And then I discovered one particular wine that I was buying, which was Stag's Leap Wine Cellars. The importer had was not importing anymore. And so I said, well, maybe I'll import your wines. I've got the wine treasury. And that's how it sort of started. And it was quite successful. And then other California wine producers, we had Schaefer, we had Phelps, we had Kistler, we had all the sort of top names. They all actually came to me to do that. And we did a good job for them, I think. And we never sold a lot of wine, of course, because for some of them, just sort of getting their wines into Harrods or the Gavroche or something like that, that's all they wanted, and they could justify coming over to the UK on expenses, which is, for some of them, it wasn't. I don't think neither they or we were really making any big money. But obviously, we had our bread and butter wines as well. And our wine list, we hoped, had a bit of a sense of humour. Because we were importing wines from a big producer in the Languedoc, and they had all different varietals. There was Merlot, Pays d'Oc, Merlot Doc, Syrah Doc, Chardonnay Doc, and at the bottom I put "What's up, Doc?" Chateau de Lapin, and somebody ordered it, and I had to tell them it was out of stock. And then I decided at the age of 65 I would retire, and I sold the Wine Treasury to my employees. It's still running, and it's still a very successful importer of wine, particularly from California. And I'm very pleased of that, although I really got nothing to do with them whatsoever now. And I decided to get involved. I always did a bit of writing. I did an article on Andy Quaddy for Decanter some years ago, and one or two other things as well I did for Wine Magazine, and just the odd thing. And I sort of met David Moore and Philip Williamson, who just started Wine Behind the Label, and I really love the idea of that concept. This is a sort of encyclopedic volume you could have of, all the best wine producers in the world, or as many as you could find. And so I got involved with them. We did one or two other books together. We did Travel and Taste Guides of France, and we did one on the wines of England and Wales back in 2008. And it was very bold in those days. It was almost one of the first books, apart from Stephen Skelton's stuff, which was a bit more technical. And then Philip left in 2008, and David and I just carried on. And we decided to go a little bit digital and not produce it every single year, because it's a great labour of love. It's never really made any money. It's just about kept its head above water. But the restaurant business was a hell of a lot more profitable. So here we are we're still carrying on. We've got a little team with us. We have Jim Budd, we have Michael Edwards, we have Kathleen Burke who are on our team. We've lost one or two people from our team for reasons I won't go into, but we're looking for one or two other people. Again, we have to be very careful with our budget and make sure that we do some sales. And the emphasis I've always had about wine is value for money, and it doesn't mean cheap. You could have a £100 wine, which is so incredibly marvellous, it's value for money. Or you could have a £5 wine, which tastes like you've licked the backs of 1,000 envelopes. And so what we did develop in Wine Behind the Label, we had this rating system between 1 star and 5 stars plus, indicating a level of quality. And then we had a price range starting from A, which was now under £8 a bottle retail, to H, which is over 100 or 150, I can't remember what it is now, and all these steps in between. And when you match the price with the quality, you get what the French lovingly call le rapport qualité-prix. And this is really, I think, our main objective, is to find wines which is rapport qualité-prix. And it's one of the reasons why I actually invented the app, whereby based on that rapport on ratings in our guide, you can find out, if you go to a shop or a restaurant, stick in the price you're being asked to pay, and this will tell you whether it's value for money, reasonably priced, considerably overpriced, or exceptional value for money. And I think people are beginning to use it. It's not being used a lot at the moment, but I find when I go to a restaurant, it's an absolutely essential tool. I went to a very nice restaurant the other day, just locally to me, called Le Colombier, it's been there for maybe 20 years. It's a very sort of traditional French restaurant, without being overtly so. It's very French, and prices are reasonable. There were 5 of us. We chose 2 wines. They're actually both from the Languedoc-Roussillon area. One was £28 a bottle, one was £29 a bottle, and one came up as value for money, and one came up as exceptional value for money. And that's really pleasing, when you've gone into a restaurant, and my friends who are not in wine savvy at all, they're not in the wine business or anything like that, they're just personal friends of ours, they really thought those wines were delicious. Excellent. And that's so pleased to find when, somebody who's doesn't know anything about wine says this is a great wine, and the price was great and everything like that. And so we've just brought out the 11th edition of Wine Behind the Label. The digital, the PDF is out already. The print version is at the printers. It should be back in the next week or so. And then we've got advance orders for that. They will start going out. The book is now 1,100 pages, and it's probably going to be the last version we're going to do as a single volume, because we've just got to the stage now where we're going to have to do 2 volumes, maybe Old World and New World or something like that. We'll have to find a way to split it. But the PDF is now 2,600 pages.
Impressive.
But you look, it's all on here. You can get it on your phone. You can get it on, if your eyesight's good enough to read it on your phone.
And obviously, on Wine Behind the Label, you've also got your value for money scale. Got 26,000 wines rated. You've got winery profiles. What do you see as readers or users? What do they mostly kind of engage with nowadays?
Certainly, okay. You have the wine professional and you have the wine amateur in the true sense of the word. The professionals, we're finding that sommeliers are using it to find wines, to source wines. And in fact, we even had a guy who started his own wine business, who used it to start his own wine business, which was great. As the amateur, again, people like to know about wine, they like to read up about wine. We do a little potted biography of the winery and who's running it and why they're running it and the wines they have and what they have. And also it's great when you can use it. If you're going wine touring, it's actually a great place. We've got all the contact addresses and etc. You just make your own itinerary. You can go and visit these people.
Excellent.
And it does focus you, it does target you, not to just go with the local tourist authority wine tour, which just takes you to the biggest contributors to the local coffers, and put you on their list, and you're just drinking loads of Vin Ordinaire.
Super. And obviously, at your time at Wine Treasury, you worked a lot with Californian wines.
Yes.
But do you have a region which for you offers great value for money in the world? Is there any particular wine region that's very dear to your heart in terms of value?
Well, I think Languedoc-Roussillon is great value for money. Southern Italy, I mean, both of them, now the prices are coming up. People are, I'm thinking about 20 or 30 years ago, we were staying with some friends in the Aude, and we went to the local wine producer, and you go in there, the whole place actually stunk of alcohol. And he was waiting for the Bordeaux lorry to come by so they could pick up his wines to blend into the Bordeaux. But it doesn't happen anymore because, their sons, I mean, these were peasants. I mean, their sons they've gone to enological school. They've learned how to make wine properly. They're proud of their wine, and the prices are going up, and people are buying it because it's good. But it's still better value. Great Languedoc is better value than most of the good Bordeaux, I would say. Then in Bordeaux as well, there are the sons of the old people who are coming in. There are the garagistes, not quite the same as the Californian garagistes, but that's a different sort of story. But another great region, southern Italy, you go to Puglia, Campania, and Basilicata, and you've got these undiscovered things, Aglianico, and things like the white wines. The Fiani, for instance, this is stuff they used to send to the north to put into their vermouth, to put into their camp as the base for their Cinzano and Martini, because it was almost undrinkable stuff. But with global warming, these wines have become much better. People are making really great wines down there, great value as well. I think other good places that we're finding value, Bulgaria's great value, terrific value, and they're making some really good wines. Other places in the sort of Eastern Mediterranean, perhaps not so much. Israel are making good wines, but the good ones are not necessarily cheap. Hungary's a bit mixed. Then you've got Croatia and Slovakia and Romania and Turkey. Again, these are very mixed. These are some of these wineries were taken over. They've taken over state-run wineries in the communist era, and they've made something of them, but it's taken them a long time. And of course, the problem is they're in a tremendously competitive world market. So in a way, they've got to be cheap. Whether they'll be able to compete financially or not, I don't know. We'll have to see.
And then my last question, you mentioned your restaurant business with your wife,
yes.
and she was the first woman to get a Michelin star in the UK.
That's right, yes.
So what's cooking in the Blech household? What do you like to eat during the midweek, and what wine? What are your household dinners and pairings as such?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're old now, and we try and keep it simple. Both of us are old, so we don't really go in for the fancy decorating. Although Sonia, for the wine behind the label website, she does a few recipes and we do some photos and certain things that she used to do. And I'm trying to get her to do some more of that, but she wants to just have a nice time and go out to the cinema and the opera and the theatre and don't really bother with this. I don't pay her for it, so why should she? So just something simple, just a nice piece of meat or a nice piece of fish. She's very, very good on sauces. She can make a sauce. She never uses flour or any thickening agents, so she'll make sauces out of vegetable juices. I would say it's almost a vegan philosophy plus meat.
Thank you very much.
So we do have meat, we do have fish and wines. Well, I've been buying wine from Waitrose, especially when they have their special offers, and I look them up on my app, and I get the exceptional value for money ones.
Super, good tip. Thank you.